Take a look at this find of archaeologists. At first glance, nothing unusual. An imprint that was found in the city of Mpaluzi in South Africa. It seems that no one can doubt that this is a human foot. The trail completely repeats the anatomy of the foot. This was proven by computer analysis. But first of all, two things are shocking: material and age. South African researcher Michael Tellinger puts forward a number of shocking versions. In his opinion, this imprint is the best evidence that giants once existed on Earth. It is also interesting that such traces are found everywhere in the world. In India and Thailand, South and North America, Lebanon, China and other places. For example, footprints 57 centimeters long were found in the Chinese province of Guizhou. The depth of the trace is 3 centimeters. On this basis, the researchers suggest that this creature could reach a height of up to 8 meters. Human footprints found in the U.S. state of Nevada. Here they are 50 centimeters long. And even in the Perm Territory, there is also a trace of a giant. It was found on Mount Mpaluzi. Sensational discoveries have recently been made in Turkmenistan. A whole chain of footprints of large people was found there. Experts found that according to the trail, the height of the person who left it was more than 2.5 meters. But this is not all the mysteries of history. There is also an unexplainable artifact, where in the chain of ancient footprints of a giant and a dinosaur, another footprint is woven. And this is the trace of an ordinary person, just like you and me. Therefore, we can say that archaeological facts indicate that different races of people existed on Earth. Well, if science has material evidence for the existence of dinosaurs, then it is more difficult to believe in the existence of giants. The skeletons of these giants have never been discovered. Or are they just not talking about it? However, researchers believe that there is other evidence that giants once lived on Earth. This is Luxor, an ancient city in Egypt located on the east bank of the Nile. Favorite place for tourists. Many even prefer it to Cairo. The thing is that architectural monuments of incredible size and beauty have been preserved here. People from all over the world come to see them. One of these monumental structures is the Temple of Karnak. If, for example, we consider the Karnak Temple, which is now located in Egypt near Luxor, then we can say that everything that is in Karnak is the most gigantic. Indeed, the Karnak Temple complex is the most grandiose in scale of all the buildings of ancient Egypt. The palace is more like a separate city, and is a real open-air museum. The territory on which the buildings are spread occupies a huge area, about 40 hectares. So the complex cannot be hidden from human eyes. But the mystery of the construction of the temple still haunts researchers. After all, it is hard to imagine that these giant blocks and columns were installed by ordinary people. After all, it is really very difficult to assume that this was done by conventional winches and lever mechanisms. The ensemble in Karnak consists of 3 parts dedicated to different deities. Supreme God Amun-Ra, his wife Queen Mut, their son Khonsu, the god of the moon. So that's who the builders of the temple were trying to please. However, given the size of the column of stone blocks, the researchers suggest that the gods themselves descended from heaven to earth to help people. Perhaps the first founders of ancient Egypt were from Atlantis. According to the official version of science, the Egyptian pyramids were built by ordinary people. Egyptologists have provided seemingly exhaustive evidence. They found quarries, winches and other construction tools and structures. They dug up the places where the builders lived. We learned what they ate, and even recreated the schemes of construction work. And yet there is one but. This version is contrary to formal logic and simple mathematics. Strange as it may seem, there are gigantic and incomprehensibly erected buildings on all continents. There are many of them in South America. For example, the mysterious Sacsayhuman. This is a temple complex, which is located in Peru in the city of Cusco. 3 levels of different walls, composed of polygonal masonry of megaliths, the weight of which reaches several hundred tons. The dispute about how the blocks were mined, by whom they were installed, and by whom the blocks were processed is still ongoing. There are various hypotheses. One of them again says that the builders were helped by all-powerful giants who worked with their bare hands, and, as if, blinded the blocks with their unprecedented strength. Here on the stone is clearly drawn with 2 fingers on one side. For comparison, here it is from the side. It was obviously chipped off with some kind of tool, a chisel, chipped on solid. And here it was as if they were checking with their fingers. It is impossible to know what the complex was earlier. The Spaniards who came to these lands destroyed it. For them, Sacsayhuman was a symbol of paganism. And they wanted to make on these lands the kingdom of the Pope. But this is far from the only temple complex in these parts. Cusco, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu, Tambomaque. This is only in Peru. And all these complexes do not have an official version of origin. But visually it seems that it was the giants who created them. That's how big these buildings are. It's hard to believe that this was done by ordinary people. And why? But after all, the locals never said that this was the creation of their hands. The Incas always said that, when they came here, these buildings were already there. But where did they come from then? Interestingly, such legends exist not only in South America, but also in North America, as well as in many countries in Europe and the Middle East, and even on the islands of Japan. Scientists are also interested in megaliths in Asuka Park. The facilities are located in the Kansai region on the island of Honshu, 60 kilometers from the city of Kyoto. They are located at some distance from each other. For this reason, it is quite difficult to find them even from the map. No traces of rough manual labor with a chisel were found on the stones. One of the largest megaliths in Japan, Masuda Iwaifun, measures 11.8 meters. According to a rough estimate, this megalith weighs about 700 tons. Versions of the destination are different: an ancient grave, a platform for observing stars. Some believe that these stones served as something for giant people, and therefore their purpose is not understood by ordinary people. The real purpose of the megaliths remains a mystery. Another example of incredible structures is the Baalbek terraces in Lebanon. Their columns and steps are so huge that it is not clear to modern man who and for whom these structures were built. After all, no one could believe that these huge blocks were processed and stacked by people. This is absolutely impossible with the help of modern technology. So the area of the stone terrace of Baalbek is 49.89 meters. And the columns of the temple reach a height of 8 floors. Colossal columns and cyclopean plateaus could only be moved by people of impressive size. Or mechanisms. Baalbek is first mentioned in documents dating back to the 14th century BC. During the time of the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaton, who established on the territory of Egypt and the lands subject to him, the cult of the solar deity Aten. And it is surprising that scientists have not been able to come to a common point of view about who and when these terraces were built. At first, experts were inclined to believe that the building belongs to the Romans. But in the Roman sources there is not a word about Baalbek. But the Romans, as you know, described in detail each of their buildings. So who built Baalbek? Interestingly, the patriarch of the Lebanese Maronite community, Istvan Dovagi, wrote about Baalbek. He said that according to legend, the fortress of Baalbek is the most ancient building in the world. It was built by Cain, the son of Adam, in 133 from the creation of the world in a fit of insane rage. He named it after his son Enoch and populated it with giants who were punished by a flood for their iniquities. Indeed, one of the legends says that the giants were destroyed by a flood. The biblical flood happened 12,000 years ago. But according to one of the non-canonical legends, the prophet Noah took a couple of giants on his ark. So the giants survived, so their traces are also found in post-flood times. But there are other versions of the appearance of giants on Earth. Interestingly, many ancient peoples knew about them. They were even written about in ancient Sumerian texts. This is the neighborhood of the Syrian capital Damascus. Ancient texts say that it was here that Adam and Eve settled after being expelled from paradise. And the locals believe that there is proof of this. The sacred mountain Cassian rises above the city. Cain is said to have killed Abel on this mountain. Abel's tomb is located 30 kilometers from Damascus. This place used to be the biblical city of Avila, named after Abel. And today there is a Muslim Shiite mosque Nabi Habil. It is a popular place of pilgrimage for Christians and Muslims. And inside, a granite tombstone crowns a 7-meter sarcophagus of the son of Adam and Eve. And believers are not surprised. They believe that this is how the growth of the son of the first people decreased. In addition, there is another clear evidence in favor of the existence of ancient giants. In a remote Syrian province near the Turkish border are the ruins of the temple of Dara. And they are at least 3,000 years old. The main highlight of the temple is a dent in the stone in the form of bare human feet. And the length of these footprints is 130 centimeters each. When the doctor of medical sciences Ernst Moldashov saw these traces in the photograph, he immediately equipped an expedition to Syria. From these prints, scientists calculated the growth of giants from Syria could reach 10 meters. Weight 3.5 tons. At the same place on the territory of the ancient temple, several more similar traces were found. As if the giant stood with both feet in one place. Then he pushed off and made a couple more jumps around the temple courtyard. How could he leave footprints in solid stone? The researchers hypothesized that the white limestone slabs that bear the marks were some sort of concrete pour that then hardened. The temple itself raised no less questions among scientists. It was built on top of a mountain from huge multi-ton slabs carved from black basalt. But the nearest deposits of this rock were located at a distance of more than 600 kilometers. Even today, not all countries of the world have the technology with which this can be done. How miraculously were the giant slabs delivered to Dara? And most importantly, what was the need to drag stones from such a distance, if there are tons of sandstone nearby? Information about giant people is contained in all known ancient texts. Torah, in the Quran, in the Vedas, Chinese and Tibetan chronicles, Assyrian cuneiform tablets and Mayan writings. Titans are mentioned in the legends of all peoples of the earth. Every ancient people has legends and legends about giants. Confirming this, museums around the world are filled with strange exhibits that are hard to miss. Here is my hand. And here is the handle. 1, 2, 3, and 4 due to perspective. Blades of strange lengths, 270 centimeters and 205 centimeters, are stored in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. They are called two-handed, but there are swords that need 2 or even 3 to lift. Next to the giant swords, you can see ordinary weapons, which are 10 times smaller. It may seem that giants and people of ordinary height fought side by side, each with their own weapons. And here are the exhibits of the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. This is a papal ring. And this is a mug teapot the size of a small bucket. Here is a very interesting place. This is the mausoleum of Hajj Danyir in Samarkand. According to legend, it is located over the grave of the prophet Daniel. And everyone who comes to the mausoleum is told that the hand of David is in this sarcophagus. No one is allowed inside the mausoleum, so no one can confirm this. But the burial is 18 meters long. This is Uzbekistan. Archaeological complex Mizdikan. According to legend, giants are also buried here. 12th, 11th century, some mausoleums are marked, but in general they are probably even older. And he is probably several thousand years old. And to our days, there are also modern graves. According to legend, the preacher Shamun Nabi is buried here, and his sarcophagus is 25 meters long. Here we see a long tombstone. And the most amazing thing that the researchers say, the bones of the giants still continue to be found. Carlos Vaca, Catholic priest, musician and archaeologist from Ecuador. For several decades and until his death, he kept and protected the remains of a certain 7-meter giant from intruders. But immediately after the death of the clergyman, the giant skeleton disappeared. He just disappeared, only these archival photos remained. But there are other and similar finds in the world. Official science approves. There were no giants on Earth. With the current atmospheric pressure, oxygen level, gravity and other nuances, people with a height of over 3 meters simply would not have survived. As a confirmation of this, scientists cite as an example people suffering from gigantism. More than 40 years, such people, as a rule, do not live. However, there are counter-arguments. Some experts believe that in the distant past, conditions on Earth were different. The force of attraction is lower and the oxygen level is about 50% higher. The last figure is confirmed by the analysis of air bubbles trapped in amber. Modern physicists have simulated conditions in which the forces of gravity have become an order of magnitude lower than they are now. The conclusions are: weak gravity, low atmospheric pressure and high oxygen content in the air contribute to the gigantization of biological species. Here official science has nothing to argue. After all, dinosaurs definitely lived on Earth and this has been proven. Recent expert studies show that in the era of dinosaurs, in general, all life on Earth was gigantic. But why did dinosaurs have whole skeletons, and only traces of giants? Researchers of ancient civilizations put forward many shocking hypotheses in this regard. Perhaps once upon a time giants really lived on Earth. They created couples first with each other and then with ordinary people. Then the giants either disappeared or died out as a result of the cataclysm. But their genes remained in humans. And today no one knows when and who will manifest it. Recently, another shocking hypothesis has emerged. If there are giants among our ancestors, then we are partly the descendants of another race. But skeptics will say again, this is all circumstantial evidence. But maybe there are direct ones. And the experts of the American Smithsonian Institution know about it. The Smithsonian is a research institution. It is located in the USA. It is often called the attic of the nation. And not by accident. The reserves of the Institute's museums contain 154 million objects found all over the world. Indeed, the Smithsonian Institution includes 9 major museums. More than a dozen different research museums. Institute specialists confirm that there are authentic documents. And there was the destruction of tens of thousands of human skeletons ranging in size from 1 meter, 80 centimeters to 3.5 meters. The very ones whose existence traditional archaeology does not want to recognize. But not all were destroyed. However, the very existence of strange skeletons of giants is a sensation and a godsend for science. Artifacts could bring scientists a new title, fame, money, and a place in history. Why were they ordered to be destroyed? The researchers believe this was done on the orders of high-ranking officials to protect the official theory of evolution, which is already bursting at the seams. And if this is true, all previous ideas about history and evolution collapse. And the question of who we are remains open again. Researchers also turn to ancient texts for an answer. Today, finding authentic ancient books, like the bones of giants, is not easy, but possible. What do you think about it? Write your opinion below the film. Subscribe to the channel and together we will get to the truth of our story.